I do mostly digital art. There's something inherently terrifying about the permanence of traditional art, but I got a bunch of new art supplies and I wonder if I can make something decent with them. I hope these are as pastel as the caps, but they look so pretty. One of my favorite things as a digital artist is owning a ton of art supplies that I never use. But today I'm on a mission to change that. So let's paint a character. This is a reference that I chose. I really like all the bright colors. And these are the pencils that I'm gonna be using. Okay, wish me luck. I've been trying to do more traditional art this past year, and I'm happy to say that I am finally getting more comfortable with it. Back when I first started drawing, I kind of leaned more towards digital art. Not because it was easier or anything, but I got a Cintiq for Christmas at that time and I was so excited to learn how to use it. In fact, I remember I was having a bit of a hard time getting used to it, but it was also super cool and I kind of completely ignored drawing on paper for the next years. But at some point, I started to realize that everything I create is essentially a bunch of abstract numbers on a machine. I also started to notice how rigid my art is becoming. Because with digital, it's much easier to be very methodical about painting. And I feel like you're more inclined to be super precise and to want to clean up everything perfectly. And you want to put everything on its own layer because it's much easier if you want to make any changes later on. And all of that kind of turns drawing into math, if I can put it this way. So my problem with traditional art is not so much the undo, but the selection tool. I confess, I'm a little bit spoiled by the selection tool. And as a result, I would get very attached to every single line I put down on the canvas. So when I get the proportions wrong, which inevitably I do, I feel very antsy about erasing half the drawing and redoing it. But over the past year and a half, I started going to live drawing sessions and I also took an anatomy class at the same place. And there, I had to draw a lot of the things on 50 by 70 centimeters or something around that size. That's roughly 19 by 27 inches. In other words, huge. And especially so for someone like me who's coming from my cute little iPad. At first, it was really intimidating and frustrating. But as soon as I let go of my ego and the need to be good at this, I slowly started to get the hang of it. One of the biggest things I learned from this experience was to not be so precious about everything I draw. And now, even though I still have a long way to go, I feel much more comfortable to just start scribbling and whatever happens. It taught me that it's okay to erase and redo things over and over and over again, but most importantly, it helped me build the confidence that if I drew a really cool hand, but it's a bit too small, I am fully capable of drawing it one more time just as good. And in fact, I've noticed that most of the time, my second attempt will look much better. So over time, I kind of stopped being so hesitant about erasing and redoing stuff. And now I do it a lot more, even with my digital drawings. It's a really good habit, I think. So for this drawing, one of my main concerns was the structure and the pose of the character, and the fact that if I get it wrong, there is no erasing here. And I'm not gonna lie to you, in my book, that's definitely something to be terrified of. But one solution I came up with was to use the lightest pencil to roughly sketch in the character first, because it's kind of invisible once you cover it with all the other colors. And I also decided that I am not going to aim for perfect structure and anatomy with this drawing. I think her arm is definitely too thin and too long, but I don't think it's too noticeable. Or maybe I just choose to be delusional. But the important thing is that this piece has a lot of life and energy in it. You can feel the brushstrokes and the textures, and so the structure and anatomy kind of become secondary. So even if they have some mistakes, you don't really pay that much attention to them. In the end, I'm really happy with how this drawing turned out. I'm curious to try something more stylized too, because this one is a bit naturalistic. But for my first drawing with colored pencils ever, not so bad, if I may say so myself. The only thing I would change is the color of the cap. I feel like this one is way too dark. I have this blue, yeah, here it is. I have this blue marker here, and I think this color would have worked much better. But yeah, that's the only thing I would change. Otherwise, I think it's fine. The weather outside is so good today. Unfortunately, I have to paint, so I can't go out. I found this Instagram account that posts people from New York, and everyone is so cool. I really like this girl's outfit and her whole vibe, so I wanted to challenge myself to draw her, but keep the anatomy more detailed and yet very stylized and pushed. And I also wanted to stylize her face differently than my usual style. Mostly just steer away from that cute, huge eyes look. Inspired by my traditional art attempts, I also want to challenge myself to paint without line work. Well, not exactly without line work, but without outlines everywhere like I usually do. I only want to add them where they feel necessary. But otherwise, I want to try to communicate all the information through shape and color instead. Banana split ice cream. I don't want to spoil my dinner, but I kind of do. That was not particularly cool. The last ingredient. I should really stop consuming that much tuna. I know it's not good for you to eat it very often, and this is literally the third time this week that I'm making this, but it's so good. Okay, this is it. I tried to make it good for you, but this is what I'm gonna do in reality. Yeah. Річі.
Само за 20 секунд. Що будеш
Wieso tickst du? Na Ameriko. Look at all those neat folders, and I want to show you mine. I urgently need to take these home, but not tonight.